Okay, so what if a single photograph didn't just capture a moment, but could actually unlock the next 75 years of history? That's what we're digging into today. How a static, frozen image from the past can be transformed into something, well, something dynamic and explorable. When you think about it, any historical photograph is just a freeze frame. It freezes a single moment, right? It shows us what happened, sure, but it can't tell us what happened next or even what could have happened instead. It's just one single snapshot in a much, much longer movie. But here's the cool part. What if we could take that single frame and use it as a kind of launchpad? I mean, what if we could build a whole model from that one image that simulates the decades that followed? Well, that's exactly what we're going to see today. All right, so to see how this all works, we can't just pick any old picture from the archives. Nope. We have to start with a very specific, pivotal moment in time, one that's captured in a single, really iconic photograph. And here it is. This is our moment. We're looking at May 14th, 1948. Inside this very room, David Bengurion is reading the Declaration of Independence for the State of Israel. And every single person you see in this photo, they're signatories. This photograph, this is the seed from which our entire simulation is going to grow. So the big question is, how do we actually unlock the future from this one photo? Well, the answer is an AI-powered simulator. It's pretty amazing, actually. It takes all the key elements from this image, mashes them up with the known historical context of that exact day, and then transforms the whole thing into a living, breathing, dynamic model. Okay, so how on earth do you turn a picture into code? It sounds kind of like magic, right? Well, the first step is to break down everything happening in and around that one moment into simple, measurable data points, things the simulator can actually understand and work with. First step, the people in the room. The model pulls out the hard fact that there were 37 individuals who signed that declaration. And these aren't just random numbers, They represent the whole coalition of different political groups who were there at the very beginning. Next, the simulator has to log the immediate geopolitical reality. This declaration didn't happen in a vacuum, right? 5 neighboring Arab states, we're talking Egypt, Transjordan, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, they declared war almost immediately. This is an absolutely critical starting condition for the model. And then there's this piece of data, which is just, wow, a crucial one for what comes next. Just 11 minutes after the declaration was made, the United States, under President Truman, officially recognized the new state. That incredibly fast recognition by a world power, that's a massive, massive variable in this whole simulation. So to build a really complete model, the simulator needs 2 different kinds of data. First, you've got extracted data. These are the hard facts, like the 37 signatories. But to fill in the gaps, it also has to use assumed data. And these aren't just guesses, they're really carefully calibrated estimates based on historical trends. That's what lets the simulation project forward in time. Now, the engine driving this whole thing is something called an agent-based model. And honestly, the best way to think of it is like a super complex video game. You have these independent agents, and in our case, an agent could be a nation, a political group, or even an individual. And they're all programmed with certain rules and behaviors. Then you let them go. The simulation lets them all interact over and over again, and we get to see what patterns pop up over time. Okay, so we fed all that data into the model. Now for the really fun part. We get to sit back and watch history actually play out, all based on the starting conditions from that one single day in 1948. Now what's really interesting is that before it moves forward, the simulation actually looks back. You see that portrait of Theodore Herszel hanging on the wall in the original photo? That wasn't just decoration. It was a symbol of a 51-year journey. And the model shows this brilliantly. It visualizes that slow, steady buildup of international support, starting all the way back with the first Zionist Congress. And right from that moment of declaration, 2 powerful, totally opposing forces are set in motion at the exact same time. You can see it so clearly here. The blue line, that's the number of countries offering diplomatic recognition, and it just shoots upwards. At the same time, the red line shows the conflict with hostile states kicking off. The model really lays out how diplomatic legitimacy was growing, even while a war was starting. And the declaration didn't just create a state on a map, it kicked off a massive demographic shift. The model shows the Jewish population, which started around 650,000, just exploding as immigration surged, especially in those first few critical years. Okay, but this This is where the simulator becomes so much more than just a history lesson. This is where it lets us become like historical detectives and ask that amazing question, what if? And this lets us do something really powerful. First, we run what's called the historical baseline. That's the simulation of what actually happened. But then we can go in and tweak a key variable, let's say the speed of that diplomatic recognition, and run an alternate reality. And we get to see how one small change could have led to a radically different future. Just take a look at this. That blue line in the middle? That's our historical baseline, what really happened. Now, what if that initial diplomatic support was even stronger? Boom. That's the green line, the rapid recognition scenario. And what if it was weaker? If there was more opposition? That's the red line, the delayed scenario, and you can see how it struggles to gain that same legitimacy. You can literally see just how critical those first few days and weeks actually were. And really, that's the whole point. The people who created this tool put it perfectly. They said it, quote, allows users to ask what-if questions that a static photograph or history text cannot answer. We're not just reading history, we're exploring the pathways that history books can only ever speculate about. So, why does any of this matter? I mean, beyond being a really cool tech demo, what's the real-world application of turning a photo into a 75-year simulation? Well, the benefits are actually huge. For educators, it takes all these abstract theories about geopolitics and conflict and makes them real and tangible. For researchers, it creates this incredible baseline to compare how different nations come into being. And for museums, just imagine, it's a way to turn a dusty old photograph into a totally dynamic, interactive experience for everybody. It really makes you think, doesn't it? We've just seen how one single, formal political photograph can be used to unpack decades of history and geopolitics. So that leads to a final thought. What about the photos in our own lives? If one picture can hold the potential for 75 years of history, what incredible stories of challenge, growth, and change are just hiding there, waiting to be unlocked in your own family albums?